How's it going, my true people? Dr. Slacking, the Slacking Doctor, back for week 7, I believe it is this week. Yeah, I believe it's week 7 in the PEBA, that's PEBA. This week, the Lake District Spirits are going up against my man Todd, who's the coach of the, I believe it's the Washington Bombers, I believe, but I may be getting that wrong. It's Washington something. He is also, I believe, uploading battles for this league, so his link will be down in the description. Todd, if you're watching and your link isn't down in the description, or anyone else for that matter you're watching and don't find the link in the description, please shout at me in the comment section and I will add that link, because Todd is a great guy and you should definitely go check out his channel. However, moving on, let's get into this. So this is week 7 in the PEBA. Todd was the Season 1 champion. So we are going up against the reigning champion this week. And we are currently sitting, if you haven't seen the previous battles, go ahead and check those out. We are currently sitting at 3-3. So we are running neutral, 3 wins, 3 losses. We had 3 wins in a row, I believe, into 3 losses in a row. So breaking even. And I messaged my front office at the start of this week and I said, guys, we're going up against the Season 1 champion. We're 3-3. I do not want to go negative. Coming off the back of a 6-0 loss to the one guy, which was so painful, so sore, I didn't want to lose again. I didn't want to go negative because then it was going to be really hard to pick myself back up for the rest of the season. I knew that my rivals around me in the league had really difficult fixtures this week, so I was like, we can make a bit of a statement and open up a bit of a gap with the other people vying for playoffs if we can win here. That being said, we're going against the champion, so it is what it is. This is a team on screen that I or the main 6 that I was worried about him bringing. I haven't put all the sets in because not all of them are necessary. But Bishop was a real problem. The first build I had for this game, which I prepped, shout out to my front office for helping me prep. The first battle I had with this team, Bishop just completely beat me. I didn't have Infernape or Nidoking on that build, and we added those partly because of Bishop. Bishop just completely took me to pieces. I know that Todd uses Bishop superbly well. It's not a great Pokemon in draft usually, but with someone skilled that knows how to use it in a good matchup, it can be very formidable. So this was something that if I didn't see it at team preview, I would be very happy. Next up, Kieran Black. Kieran Black sort of has a great matchup against my team. It can only click 1 move at a time, of course, so it forces him to kind of make predictions or kind of hope that I don't have resist berries or kind of try and do this. Overall, my kind of type synergy works in a way that I will eventually beat Kieran Black. It might punch a bit of a hole, but I will eventually beat it, and hopefully relatively comfortably. I could do things like Sugar Berry Nidoking to hit it for big damage, Sugar Berry Metagross to completely take it out, Dragon Dance Altaria would eventually beat it after a setup, Wiki Berry Jellicent, various things. So if he brought this set, we were expecting to see something like Draco Meteor, Fusion Bolt for the Jellicent, and I don't know, Blizzard or Ice Beam plus maybe Substitute or Roost, depending on if he was a bulky or a fast set. And this was something that I had to be very careful of. I needed to find out early if he was Life Orb, if he was Choice Scarf, if he was Choice Specs, if he was Z, because I believe this is one of his Z users, or his only Z user, I believe. These were all the things that I was really having to look out for. I did originally think Miltank would be a great check to this with that thick fat ability. However, of course, this thing gets Terravolt, which sucks because it means it ignores the ability. So Miltank was not a good check to this thing, which was awful. But straight away, he has 2, 1 special, 1 physical offensive mon to really scare me. Going into his Mega Gallade, which this is a set I bothered to put in because we expected it to be something like Swords Dance, Knockoff, Ice Punch, and then either Close Combat or Zen Headbutt. He only had room for so many of these. So if he didn't have Knockoff, he couldn't touch Jellicent. If he didn't have Ice Punch, Celebi, well, no, he could have Knockoff for Celebi, but he needed Ice Punch or Poison Jab to hit the Altaria, Mega Altaria. Close Combat he needed for Metagross, although Knockoff hit Metagross, I guess. What else did he need Close Combat for? There was something else he needed Close Combat for, but then he wouldn't have room for Zen Headbutt for the Infernape and the Nidoking. So there were just various, basically this set week, if he wanted setup, he had real 4 move slot syndrome where he needed a 5th move. He needed, you know, Zen Headbutt as well as these 3, or Zen Headbutt instead of one of these 3. So once I figured out what coverage he had, my life would be a lot easier against Mega Gallade. Moving into Rotom next, and Rotom, we didn't really know what set would come. Probably just a bulky pain split set. It could have been Scarf, it could have been Specs, it could have been whatever else. But this thing would just probably be spreading like Will-O-Wisp around and everything else. One thing I should say about Mega Glade, sorry, is that my biggest fear of Mega Glade was getting its +2 because naturally it outspeeds everything on my draft. My fastest one being Durant at 109. So I had to be really, really careful. Durant was another thing that he probably needed close combat for. I believe we would live any of the others, maybe. So yeah, it kind of, this thing had the potential just to sweep if it got to +2, so I had to be super careful of that. Rotom, as I say, just a bulky defogger, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, yeah, essentially that kind of thing. Maybe Screens, but unlikely. Just his primary defogger and bulky pivot. Gliscor next up. Didn't really know what Gliscor's set to expect. Probably physically defensive with like Toxic Roost, but maybe this thing again wanted 4 moves to kind of attack. One thing I was very scared of is the potential Double Dance on this thing, Swords Dance, Rock Polish. Fortunately, it's not quite as good as Lando last week, which swept me with that exact thing. But still, I had to be wary of it late game because my team doesn't really like Double Dancing Gliscor or Lando. And then last up, Klefki. Klefki I thought would just be like a Hazard Stack Spikes. I thought it would probably have like Flash Cannon or Flash Cannon or play Rough for the Mega Altaria and a Foul Play for various other setup things, and Foul Play just does a chunk. Maybe Toxic, maybe Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave was a real problem for me in prep with this thing. When I didn't have the Nidoking, I had no good switch into this, and everything was just getting Thunder Waved, and it was a nightmare. So with all that in mind, I've tried to do this as quick as I can because I'm conscious that I think we spent too long on team builders. This is the team that we built, and this first set is, in my opinion, the best set on this team. One of the things that I love is this week I built in voice call with Checkmate Ben, and we did both teams. The first draft of the team, which I sucked with, which Ben, during the mocks, he said, well, let me try it with this team, and he won with that team. He played it very well, but ultimately it wasn't to my style, and I just couldn't use it. It was a Ben team, not a Dr. Slacking team, I guess. So we rebuilt, and what was really great about building with Ben is that A, he understood that. He was just like, okay, if it's not your team, it's not your team. That happens. We'll build you something that is your team. And secondly, when I say something insane, he usually likes it and usually lets me do it, but helps me figure out exactly how to do it. So this week, we brought a physically defensive Infernape. I doubt you will see this very often. So this is max HP, max physical defense, the rest just slapped into attack to try and get a little bit damage output with leftovers. Iron Fist ability, of course, to boost that Muck Punch and Fire Punch with Acrobatics and Slack Off. Weird set, I know, but the idea is I didn't have a good switch in on my entire draft to Bishop. If he fired off a Steel move, Altaria doesn't want that. If he fires off a Dark move, Jellison doesn't want it. Nothing really wanted Bishop to take a hit from Bishop, sorry, and nothing wanted to lose its item either. However, this Infernape did not care. It switched into a knockoff, and it took like 30% max if he was adamant. I lost my leftovers, well, that's fine, because now I have boosted Acrobatics to hit your Mega Gallade later on, which I don't think you're going to be anticipating. So it was just a really, really fun set here. Mach Punch for priority to hit that Bishop as well. Fire Punch so that I could try and hit the Klefki as well, because I didn't want to just be walled by Klefki a little bit. And Mach Punch wouldn't do that much. And Slack Off, of course, for recovery. Really cool getting to use Slack Off, of course, the slacking Evolution Line's signature move. Getting to use that here was real nice, and I thought this set was a bit of heat, I'm not gonna lie. I thought this was a bit of spice to just deal with Bishop over and over again. Bishop just couldn't touch this set, which I thought was awesome. So I really loved that. Next up we have Altera, Mega Altaria, with Hyper Voice, Fire Blast, Defog, and Roost. This set was a bit of a source of contention between me and Ben. I originally was thinking physical, but he liked special, and I agreed with him in the end. After seeing him use this set in one of the mocks very well, sort of, I agreed that I liked the set. However, he wanted Ice Beam or potential Toxic or something else over Defog. Definitely Ice Beam was his primary one he wanted to hit that Gliscor. I felt that Hyper Voice did enough to Gliscor, and we'll see if I was right or not. So I just felt like I needed a Defogger on this team. When you're going up against a team with a Klefki, and he also has an Accelgor, which we didn't mention, then I felt like we really needed to have Defog because Hazard Stack was real against that team. He has great Hazard Stack options, so I felt that Defog was super important on this build. We have a Spadef thing. Spadef build here because one of the Pokemon I didn't mention in his team builder was Keldeo. I didn't think that Keldeo had a great matchup, but it had potential to come, so we needed to make sure that we could wall Keldeo with this Mega Altaria, and that's really what we did with this kind of investment. Just to make sure that we had a good switch in to Keldeo at all times, which brings us on to our next Pokemon, which is Dutchman, the Jellicent. Dutchman also an amazing switch into Keldeo with that water absorb ability. Keldeo really wants to be Specs a lot of the time, otherwise it's going to be Life Orb and we're going to be losing some HP, but it wants to be Specs a lot of the time for damage output. So water absorb means if he locks himself into Hydro Pump, thank you very much, I'm going to get my HP back, beautiful, or I get a free switch in as you double out into something else. So this Jellicent was really here for that, but also it was here to deal with the Kyurem. It could switch into Kyurem on a potential Blizzard. It took like nothing from KB's Blizzard, well, it took something from KB's Blizzard, but not too much. And then as he went for the Fusion Bolt, we had the Wakam Berry and we fired off a Will-O-Wisp, which then meant his next Fusion Bolt would do nothing again and we could recover up on it. The idea being that unless he was a Home Clause set, which we didn't think he could be because he needed more coverage than that, he also might have wanted Earth Power, was something I forgot to mention before, to try and hit the Metagross. So yeah, we felt like he couldn't have enough move slots to really have Home Claws, in my opinion. So Recover Will-O-Wisp just meant that we pretty much walled Kyurem Black, which isn't something you get to say very often, but obviously we were gambling on landing the 85% Willow chance, which sucks, but there we go. Toxic was here for the incoming Rotom if I wanted to predict that switch. Will-O-Wisp was also nice for Mega Gallade, of course, but Toxic was to try and predict that incoming Rotom switch and to wear that thing down. Hex just because he has a Gliscor, which doesn't appreciate a Hex because it's going to be running Toxic Orb so that it gets its Poison Heal. Also to then wear more things down once we've got the Will-O-Wisp and the Toxic on them. And it's Stab, of course. And as I say, Recover for longevity. Eeveed here to be able to take that Fusion Bolt, get the burn off, and then live the next one as well and start recovering up. So that's why we have so much in defense. The rest just put into, physical defense, sorry. And the rest put into Spadef just to try and deal with maybe like a HP Electric Keldeo, HP Ghost, HP Dark Keldeo, something like that might want to wear me down as well. Next up we have Celebi, and this again was a set that changed a lot. I should say this Dutchman originally had Trick Room for a bit, but we changed that out because we wanted to set up Trick Room Luxray, but I just could not use that Pokemon in this matchup, so we sacked that off completely. So next up we have Charlotte with the Colbur Berry. This set was originally a Light Clay with Reflect, Light Screen, Dazzling Gleam, and U-Turn. Trick Room was potential on here as well, maybe over Reflect, we weren't quite sure. Or I wasn't quite sure, I should say. But I decided that actually I really struggled with that setup Mega Gallade. One thing that I could do to Swords Dance Mega Gallade is live a knockoff with our Colbur Berry and set up a Reflect. It also meant that I would live like or I would take even more like a HP Dark from a Keldeo if it was running it for the Jellicent. I could take like a Sucker Punch or something, or a knockoff from the Bisharp, not that I could do much to it, but it was just a Colbur Berry made a lot of sense. He had quite a few things that might be running dark coverage, so the Colbur Berry really worked here. We had quite a fast speed because the idea was that this thing would set up a light screen on Kyurem Black. We outsped max speed Kyurem Black, so we would set up a light screen on that, which meant that we then wouldn't die to his Blizzard, and we could U-turn, pivot out into something like Jellicent to take the second Blizzard, and then we could fire off our Will-O-Wisp to completely neuter that thing. Kyurem Black seemed a great switch into Celebi as well, so if we could get a light screen up and then U-turn out on it, we really shut down that Kyurem Black. So that's what this set was mainly here to do. Dazzling Gleam was good coverage for both the Mega Gallade and the Kyurem, which is why we didn't run like Stab Psychic or Stab Giga Drain or Leaf Storm. Just there for nice coverage to hit most of the things on his draft that we wanted to hit with this set. So yeah, that's why we had that. The rest just slapped into Spadef and HP, as I say, so that we can take that Blizzard through Light Screen to the best of our abilities. And I believe we also take a Choice Scarf Blizzard. He would need to be Life Orb or Specs to take us out with this investment. And if he was Life Orb or Specs, he didn't outspeed us. So again, that's why we have this kind of balance here, which I think is a really, really nice build actually. And then the penultimate Pokemon here, Keanu Reeves, our Porygon Z. So this thing, one of the Pokemon I didn't mention as well in the builder was his Dusknoir. Dusknoir was his only great switch into Porygon Z, in my opinion. Choice Specs, Tri-Attack, pretty much chipped everything else for like 50%. Not much could take 2 hits from a Choice Specs Tri-Attack. So we figured that the Dusknoir had a pretty decent chance of coming. And so with that in mind, we decided to run a physically defensive with some bulk, some special attacks, some speed. This set is wild, I know. The idea being that at +2 after an agility, with this speed, we guarantee outspeed all Choice Scarfers on his team. What's more, with this defense, we guaranteed like take 2 or 3 Brick Breaks from the Dusknoir, which is the most logical switch into us. Which means we get the agility off. then we can potentially get a Nasty Plot off. Then we hit him with the Darkinium Z boosted Dark Pulse. Is it Never Ending Nightmare, or is that no? It's Black Hole Eclipse. We can hit him with the Black Hole Eclipse and Oko the Dusk Noir, even if it's like AV Dusk Noir after a Nasty Plot into Z Dark Pulse. Oko's that thing, and we really just had a great chance to sweep at the end of the game with this thing. That was the kind of plan. This was, as Ben kept drilling it into me in the mocks, this was my win condition. I kept sacking this thing off too early or trying to wall break with it, and he kept being like, this is your late game win condition. Do not let this thing go down early, which I had to bear in mind in the battle. And because of that, this last Pokemon was again a real source of debate in the building. It's the 6th slot on the team, and it was the last one to be decided, and I insisted in the end that we ran Life Orb Nidoking. Ben really wanted to have Metagross or Luxray. I wasn't comfortable using Luxray, and he really respected that. And ultimately, I felt that Metagross didn't have wall breaking potential in this matchup. I felt like it had decent matchups against one or two things, and it was a good lure to something like the Kieran Black, but I didn't think it could break through things like the Klefki, the Rotom Wash, and the Bishop. I can never remember that thing's name for some reason today. But yeah, I didn't feel like it could break through those things for me, and that was my big issue, was if I wanted PZ to set up and sweep, I needed to punch some big holes in his team. So that's why we brought Life Orb Nidoking, just going for enough speed to outspeed. The idea was here, if he tried to speed creep with his Gliscor, if he tried to speed creep a max speed Adamant Mega Altaria, then we speed crept that. Pretty aggressive speed creeping. I don't think I really discussed that with Ben too much. And actually we had 4 HPs left over, 4 EVs left over, which I should have put in Spadef or Defense, but I just missed that. Don't think it mattered. But yeah, we had 4 left over EVs, damn. Anyway. Modest nature of maximum damage, the idea being he didn't have anything that could switch into this and not take like 50%. Bulky Kieran Black took a chunk from a Sludge Wave. Bishop couldn't come in case I Earth Powered. He just Ice Beam for coverage for the Gliscor. The only thing that I kind of wanted was Flamethrower for the Klefki in case he had Magnet Rise, but at the same time, in case I had Flamethrower, I don't think he could stay in with Klefki that well. So Stealth Rock was there as well, because Stealth Rocks, as I said, were hugely important. If I was going to wear down the... Oh, that's the wrong button. If I was going to wear down the Rotom Wash, the Gliscor, and the Kyurem, then I needed those rocks to be up. So rocks became vitally important in this matchup, so that's why we had those on Nidoking as well. Nidoking's one of those Pokemon where it seems like it's not a great rock setter because, oh, I want to be getting damage with Kieran Black. I want to be punching holes up with Kieran Black with Nidoking. I want to be punching holes with Nidoking. I want to be getting damage off. But in another way, that's why it's such a great rock setter, because it forces switches. It says to him, okay, well, look, I have my Nidoking on the field. Do you really want to stay in? Like, go into something else and let me get my rocks up for free, and then I'll just pivot around, and now suddenly I have rocks up. So, and you have to defog at some point, which lets me get the momentum back. So, I feel like it's one of these Pokemon that's like, gives you momentum, it gives you chip, it gives you wear and tear by forcing switches out as it gets rocks up, which I really like. So, that was the team. Hopefully that didn't take too long. I feel like that took about 20 minutes, and I apologize. But we will now jump into battle and see exactly how it went. So here we are in the battle, guys, and I forgot to say, I should have said this at the start of the video. I might just include a bit of face cam at the start of the video to say this. You'll know if I did or didn't by this point. But in my opinion, this was our best game ever, our best battle ever. So if you made it through the team builder, if you're still here watching, kudos to you. But in my opinion, this is the best battle we have had on the channel so far. And I know I said that week 1 of the PEBA against Isaac, but I really think this battle topped it. I honestly think, because in the battle against Isaac, there was moments of lurk, there was moments of RNG, I guess, to some extent. In this one, there really wasn't. This was a super clean battle that just came down to 2 coaches going head-to-head, giving it their all. Really just trying to win the best they could. So, here we go, team preview. The Mega Gallade did come, which sucked. That was the thing that I was most scared of ever. Anything. It's the thing I felt I had the worst counters to. But the Kieran Black and the Bishop didn't come, so I was hugely relieved about that. The Keldeo came, which I felt like I would handle the Keldeo. I wasn't scared of the Keldeo, so that was really important. The Talonflame came, which terrified me because I didn't do any prepping for Talonflame. I didn't even consider Talonflame. I didn't know what it wanted to do. The Klefki came, which was a pain. The Rotom and the Gliscor came to be bulky, which was a pain. So I really looked at this team and I thought, well, if I could beat the Mega Gallade, I don't lose to him offensively, I don't think, unless it's Double Dance Gliscor. If I can wear down the Rotom Wash, I think I win offensively. That's what I thought, at least. So they were the two things that I really wanted to break down as early as I could. And looking at his team, for his leads, I thought Gliscor was a really good lead for him. I thought Rotom was a really good lead for him. And I thought Klefki was a really good lead for him. Maybe U-Turn, Talonflame as well. Looking at that, I thought, well, the only one that I don't want to be in with Nidoking is the Rotom Wash. And if he goes Rotom Wash, I can switch out into Celebi. That is the freest switch in the whole game. All of this battle. The one thing that I knew before the battle even started was that if he brought Rotom Wash, I always switched into Celebi, and I always took no damage, and it was always safe. So if I led with Nidoking, it just seemed like the logical choice here. So we went off with Nidoking, and oh, that went way too fast. Let's slow that down. And he actually leads off with the Klefki. So we just decided to go Rocks, thinking that he would switch out here, and he in fact stays in and goes for the Light Screen, which makes a lot of sense. It means he could live in Earth Power, so we had no reason to switch out. I just didn't expect dual screens Klefki from turn 1. But we got our Rocks up, so that's something. So here he goes for the Reflect, obviously, and I just fire off the Earth Power to get some damage. And we see that it does 83, meaning he lives on 17. Really sucks. I wish that we could have put him in range where he died from Stealth Rocks. So I think Stealth Rocks 12%, Klefki takes resisted, so I think we'd need to have put him down at like 6 or 5 or 6% health. So it really sucks that we couldn't get him down low enough to do that. It means he can come back in on Rocks and potentially get Prankster screens up later in the battle, which will become important. But I just didn't... I didn't have any other play there. My play first turn was to click Stealth Rocks, because even if I didn't, he still could have done this. He still could have got his screen up, the light screen at least. So I decided to just Earth Power again. I don't know what he wants to do here. If he goes into Rotom Wash, that's not a huge problem. I was hoping he would sack the Klefki, but he actually goes into the Gallade. And suddenly I'm thinking, oh my goodness. It's a Mega Gallade behind dual screens. He can set up. He can set up a Swords Dance right now. And depending on his coverage, depending on rolls, he might just beat my whole team. If he has Knockoff that can beat Nidoking. If he has Close Combat, he can probably beat Infernape. It can beat Porygon Z. Knockoff would beat Celebi. Double Knockoff would, and I didn't know if I could take him out from 56%. Knockoff would beat Jellicent. So I'm suddenly thinking, oh my god, if he just sets up, if he just clicks, and Ice Punch of course would kill Mega Altaria. If he just clicks Swords Dance here and he has Knockoff, Close Combat, Ice Punch, I just lose potentially. I have to get some damage off on this thing right now so that Celebi can live one with its Colbur Berry and potentially revenge kill him with Dazzling Gleam. But Jesus, this is going to be scary. So we just fire off the Earth Power, and he actually just goes straight for the Zen Headbutt, which was at once gutting because we lost Nidoking when we could have had a switch, but at the same time, like, so if he has Zen Headbutt, I think he has Close Combat, and I also think he has Poison Jab or Ice Punch, one of the two, probably Ice Punch. So I go out into Dutchman here because if he has a knockoff, he's unboosted, so he can't KO me. He can't just take me out with a knockoff here. He needs to be at +2 to take me out with the knockoff. And I can just get off a Will-O-Wisp here. I figured he'll probably stay in and go for the knockoff if he has it. So we just go for the Will-O-Wisp. And he actually goes out into Rotom Wash, which suggests to me maybe he doesn't have knockoff. Maybe that's the move he's missing that we thought he had, but we can't play like that for sure. And we went for the Willow. Even if we'd got it on the Rotom, it would have been nice, but there was no point in trying to predict and go for the Toxic there against that Gallade. It was too scary. And he actually misses his Toxic as we go into Celebi. As I say, Celebi is the freest switch in the world to a Rotom. All he can do is Toxic me, and I don't really mind getting Toxic at this point. So I really felt like, okay, this... he said it in the chat here at this point. I missed my Will-O-Wisp into his Rotom. He missed his Toxic into my Celebi. So the look kind of balanced out there. And at this point, I'm like, right, let's get screens up. Let's get our Reflect up. I don't need a light screen in this game because his only special attack is a Rotom, which I have a great switch into. Keldeo, which I have a great switch into. And potential Klefki, which I have a great switch into. Between Celebi and Jellicent, I feel like we handle his special attackers. So I'm like, let's get Reflect up now. Make sure that we're not taking too much damage and we can see what he wants to do. And he actually goes into Talonflame here, which really surprised me. And I'm like, well, I don't want to lose Celebi this early, and it could be an SD set. So what do I do? Okay, well, let's go out into Mega Altaria, because behind a screen, he can't do too much to me. We can get a Mega Evolution off and Roost off as he takes chip damage with, like, Brave Bird or Flare Blitz. But he actually goes for the Substitute here, and I'm like, damn, well, he doesn't know I'm carrying Hyper Voice. So I can hit him behind his sub, which is nice, and he won't predict that. I thought he might go for an SD or something, but he actually goes for a Roost. So we only get 35% there, you can see with that Hyper Voice. So we would have killed him had he got greedy and gone for the Sword Stance or anything else before going for the Roost. But he made the Spark play and just goes for the Roost there. And I'm like, crap. This thing's behind a sub. Do I just play for the crit game? Hyper Voice has 15 PP, I think, or something like that. Roost has about 15 PP as well. I don't do enough to force him to Roost every turn, so I will run out of PP before him, so I can't play that game. If he gets a Toxic off on me at some point, then he's going to wear me down. So I was like, okay, I can't stay in with Mega Altaria. I have to make a play here, and I don't want to. The best thing to break this thing sub is probably Porygon Z. I want to guarantee I'd break it sub. Now, as it happens, I probably could have gone Jellicent, but I didn't really want to get the Toxic on Jellicent either. I knew he would Roost this turn, and that was fine. So I get to fire off a Tri-Attack here, knowing I have one turn of Reflect left. If he attacks, he's not going to do too much, but he actually just chooses to get back up to full as we break his sub with the Tri-Attack. Now, at this point, he's in an interesting position. He can go for damage, and my Reflect's going down, but I know he won't do too much, so I can just fire off another Tri-Attack, and hopefully he switches out trying to preserve this thing, because it's clearly his Mega Altaria check, I've realised now. And he must have realised that too. But he actually goes for the Acrobatics, which I thought was really cool, because it meant that he wouldn't even have taken Chip when attacking my Mega Altaria, and we don't KO him with the Tri-Attack either, which really surprised me, so he must have had some bulk. But we just go out into Jellicent at this point, because we realise, okay, so we break his sub with Hex. He can't do anything to me. I don't think he has Toxic because he hasn't clicked it yet. So let's just click Recover and we're not taking too much damage. And we can just recover our way back up. And we click Toxic here so that we get an extra turn of Recover. There's no point clicking Hex because then we'd be left on 44 HP. This time we get to Recover, get as high as we can. I think we get to about 60. As he drops to his Toxic. I could have played that a little bit longer, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't give him a free switch into the Rotom Wash without taking something on a Toxic. So that's why we went for the Toxic a little bit earlier than perhaps we needed to. We could have got up to about 80% health, I think, if I played around a bit more. But of course, he does go into the Rotom Wash, and this is a very, very free switch into Celebi, as I've said previously. And he goes out into Mega Glade, and here I'm like, okay, this is fine, actually. This is completely fine, because the way that I need to handle Mega Glade is getting Reflect Up. And if you don't have Sword Stance and I have my Reflect Up, you're not doing that much. And if you do have Sword Stance, then you don't have that much coverage. Oh, sorry, yeah, you won't have that much coverage. You can't have, because I've seen you have Zen Headbutt, so you can't have Ice Punch and Close Combat and Knockoff. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Maybe, you know, we'll go for the screen and see what happens. And he does reveal to have the Sword Stance here as we get our Reflect Up. And I'm like, that's okay, because maybe he doesn't have Ice Punch, but he does have the Ice Punch and not the Knockoff. And I was thinking we would take 2 Knockoffs through the Reflect after Colbur Berry. So I was like, okay, we're actually just going to beat the Glade 1v1 here. But we don't, because he goes for the Ice Punch. And I'm thinking at this point, right, either he's... And I really didn't think if he had Knockoff, I didn't think he would ever click Ice Punch, because it was more likely we were carrying Yachi Berry to try and beat the Kyurem. So I was really surprised there, and I was like, okay, I don't think he has Knockoff, but frankly, it's not really worth running the risk. We can go out into Altaria, we're at 100%, we have a Reflect Up, and we guarantee kill this thing as long as he doesn't freeze us. I don't need to get too crazy with the Jellicent, which is still really useful for his Keldeo, so that's why I make that play. He goes out into this thing, and I'm like, okay, this thing can't really do too much to me. What can it do? It reveals that he outspeeds me, which I kind of expected because we're min-speed. So actually, no, I think he guaranteed outspeed me. I don't know what I'm talking about. But we get a Roost back up to nearly full, and I'm like, that's good. What else can he do to me here? And he fires off the Hydro Pump for 15, which is like nothing. Lets me get a Hyper Voice off, and suddenly I'm like, okay, mission accomplished. At this point in the game, I could not be in a better position. Klefki is down at 17%. Rotom is down at 32%. I'm in a really, really good position to try and set PZ up and sweep. However, PZ's down at 57. So I'm thinking, oh, I need to be careful. I need to make sure that I take a hit from something. What can I take a hit from? What can I set up on? So that's kind of in the back of my head at this point. But we've got Chip on everything. That's great. And I figure he's just going to go for another Hydro Pump here to try and chip me down with Toxic damage. I don't want to take too much Toxic stacking up. So I just go out to Jellicent, hoping that he clicks Hydro Pump, which indeed he does. And it gives me a nice 25% back to my health. I know that if he went for Volt Switch, I had Wiki Berry anyway, so it wasn't an issue. He actually chooses to go for the Toxic here as I fire off a Hex. The reason that I fire off the Hex is because I don't want him to just go into Klefki on me and start setting up screens. I want to make sure that if Klefki comes in, it's punished. So here I could have made the read. I know that he's going to Volt Switch this time for sure. And I could have made the read and gone for the Toxic. He's just seen him clicking Hex. He's probably not going to go into Klefki. But in my opinion, it just wasn't worth taking the risk. So I click Hex again. Yes, Toxic would have been better on Captain Jim the Keldeo. But Hex was just a safer play and I wanted to play safe. Now we had to see what the Keldeo locks himself into. And he actually KOs us with what I think at the time is probably a Hidden Power Electric. And it does 45%. It could be Hidden Power Ghost and it could be Hidden Power Dark. But I think it's Hidden Power Electric. So I'm thinking, alright, well, that damage output means he is almost certainly Specs, I believe. I think he could have been Life Orb, but we don't see the Life Orb pop. I'm not sure if he could have been Expert Belt. I don't think he could have been Expert Belt unless he was Modest. And there's no way you bring Modest Keldeo because you need to outspeed Infernape. And you don't outspeed Infernape with Modest Keldeo unless you're Scarf, and you're not Scarf because you didn't do enough. You did too much damage to be Scarf. So at this point, I'm like, he has to be Specs. And if he's Specs, it means he's Specsed into Hidden Power Electric, or Hidden Power Dark, or maybe Hidden Power Ghost. But I have a Porygon Z and a Miltank, so do you lock yourself into Hidden Power Ghost, or do you even bring Hidden Power Ghost? I don't think so. So you're either Hidden Power Electric, which I suspect you are, or you're Hidden Power Dark. Either way, Altaria resists, and I can just try and get a Roost up, I think, or maybe Hyper Voice. Maybe I should fire up, no, I should fire up a Hyper Voice for damage to punish the switch in. And I'm like, okay, great turn. We're in a really good position here. The Keldeo has to Specs lock itself into something. The Klefki dies when it comes in on rocks twice, or any one hit after rocks will kill it. And the Gliscor I don't know anything about, but it's going to take rocks damage, and maybe we can weaken it down. We have special attackers left mainly, so that's pretty good. I'm feeling like we're in a good, solid position here. And he goes out into Klefki, and suddenly it occurs to me, wait, this thing's dual screens. What do? I know he's going to get his screens up, so I have to think ahead. And I'm like, okay, if he gets his screens up, what does that mean? Okay, so if I'm in with Mega Altaria and I kill him, he can then just go into the Gliscor or the Keldeo, and suddenly he has initiative and he's on the front foot, and that's really bad. I need something that I can sack against either the Gliscor or the Keldeo, and my best sack is always Infernape. So I go out into Infernape knowing that he's getting his screens up anyway, and if he gets the light screen up, which he's going to do first turn, getting a Reflect up as well does not matter, because Infernape doesn't touch anything left in this matchup, particularly apart from the Klefki, which isn't going to live a Fire Punch even with Reflect up at 11%. So my thinking was, right, let me give myself the initiative. Let me choose what I'm sacking off to him in the future. He can have his Reflect. I don't care. The best thing to do is to go Infernape here. So we go Infernape. He sets up his Reflect. We fire off the Fire Punch. As I said, I did consider slacking off here and just wasting another turn of Light Screen. Maybe that could have been the play, but I didn't want to give him a free switch into anything. So we fire off the Fire Punch, and then we go for another Fire Punch on the Gliscor, hoping to get the burn, and he fires off an EQ and does 52. Now, there's two things to note here. One, that was a really, really low roll, which sucked for him to some extent. Two, he is completely uninvested in attack, I believe, at this point. He must have 0 EVs in attack, and his spread, I'm thinking, is reasonably bulky, but not super bulky. I'm not quite sure of his spread still. Because of the Reflect and the fact we're not doing too much, I don't think I even really bothered to calc his spread that much, other than how much damage he did to me. So I'm like, okay, I think I saw actually that he must have not much Spadef, I think, is what I realised. I'm not quite sure here. But anyway, we fire off a Slack Off as he just goes for the Stealth Rocks. He is not going to be anticipating that we have Slack Off there, so I can understand that play. He's thinking, well, we're doing nothing to him. And at this point, he's like, oh my goodness, this man has brought Leftovers, full physical defense, Slack Off Infernape. And he's probably like, that's wild. But he's thinking, he can't touch me though. And I know that I'm going to force him out into Keldeo because I can just keep slacking off against that Gliscor and eventually just kind of stall him out of Earthquakes more than likely. Or at least just stall him for a long, long time out of Light Screen and Reflect, which could be crucial. So he decides to go into Keldeo, which I agree with. I think it was completely the right play. As we fire off another Fire Punch. Don't snag the bird here either, not that it really matters. And the only thing I can do is go for a Mark Punch as he fires off a Hydro Pump and hope that it's a Hydro Pump and that it misses. It doesn't miss, it connects. But now we're in a good position because I can go into Mega Altaria and I know that I live a Hydro Pump. I know that I beat Gliscor 1v1 and hopefully I can beat this thing 1v1. My only issue is I'm taking toxic damage and he has Rocks up, which really, really sucks. And I have to be so careful. So here, I decide to just Roost on this thing. knowing that Gliscor really can't touch me. I don't think it can do anything to me as it's uninvested in attack. I feel pretty confident an Earthquake is going to do like 0. So I just roost up and I'm like, okay, I think we're going to be okay here. And he actually reveals that he has a Poison Jab on deck. We fire off a Hyper Voice, get a crit, which does not matter at all, as you'll see in a second. And this is where I have a really tricky position, because his Poison Jab is doing 32. If I roost up again, I'm going to take 32 plus Toxic damage. If I roost up again, I'm going to take 32 plus Toxic damage, and Toxic is racking up. I suddenly can't really 1v1 this thing. I can take it out now with a Hyper Voice, but then he goes Keldeo. After Toxic damage, Spec Sacred Sword kills me. But I have been preserving and playing very carefully to make sure that should this situation arise, I have something I can do here. And it's something that I've been trying to position myself for so carefully. And that is that I can get PZ set up on this Gliscor. When I saw the damage he did to Infernape, I realized that setting up on the Gliscor was probably my best way of winning if he had any kind of coverage to take out Altaria, which he did. So I'm like, brilliant, that's fine. I know exactly what I'm doing here. So I just basically click Roost again. I don't want him to realize that I'm being super passive, and I don't want him to make the prediction and go into Keldeo realizing what's going on. He probably thinks, okay, that was a bit of a misplay, bit of weird, but a misplay. And here I fire off the Defog, knowing I dropped the Toxic damage, knowing that he can't cotton on to what I'm up to before it's too late. And we drop to this Toxic, and he probably thinks, he's just choked it. He's just choked it away. PZ's coming out, I kill that thing, and it's game over. But we know that we live an Earthquake barring a crit, and I'm not even sure a crit takes me out, actually. And I get my agility off. I guarantee outspeed everything on his team, and I know Tri-Attack kills both of them from this range. Tri-Attack drops the Gliscor, and then Keldeo comes in, and we drop the Keldeo as well. And the reason that I say, in my opinion, this is the best game we've ever had on the channel, is because both of us played every turn, in my opinion, to the absolute best of our ability. I don't believe there was a single misplay in this battle. Yes, if we had known some sets, we could have done things differently. I wouldn't have brought out Altaria on the Talonflame. Yes, if he had known what I was up to, we would have switched out into the Keldeo. Any number of things could have happened. However, in my opinion, we both, not knowing each other's sets, played the best of our ability in this game. Not a single misplay, no hacks, nothing. Like, even the Willow and Toxic miss turned out to be worthless. If he had Toxic my Celebi, I still wouldn't have died any sooner than I died with Celebi. I still wouldn't have played any different. If I'd Willowed his Rotom Wash, I still wouldn't have played any different, nor would he. So, realistically, this game was just two people playing at the top of their abilities against each other. I mean, I don't know if he feels he played at the top of his ability. In my opinion, I don't think he could have done much more. I'm going to look forward so much to seeing his side of this battle, to see how he felt about it all. And in my opinion, I don't think I could have done much more. I really made sure, and we're just going to go back to these last few turns, because at this point, you know, it was this turn here where he gets Gliscor behind the screens. And I had to be aware that if he was double dance Gliscor, I maybe just lost. I maybe just lost to double dance Gliscor at that point. I was aware of that. Double dance Gliscor between screens, behind screens was scary, and that's why I had to stay in and click Fire Punch and hope for the burn. And at that point, when he revealed that he was EQ, I thought, okay, I know that I can set up from that damage, because I know he's not attack invested. I know I can set up with PZ on this thing, and maybe that's my best way, because Infernape's going to lose to Keldeo. My Altaria's Toxic, I'm getting worn down fast. If he has some sort of coverage, which I didn't expect him to have, but he could have had Ice Fang, he could have had Poison Jab. I just had to think at that moment, we're still about 10 turns from the end here, and I was like, okay, Agility Porygon Z. I need to position myself so carefully. So after this, it was all just trying to get that win con in at the right moment against the right Pokemon to set up and win. And that's why we just slack off here and we say, okay, let's force you out into Keldeo. That will get me back into Altaria, which will get you back into Gliscor, which will get me into Porygon Z when I surprise sack the Altaria to you. Whew! The level of thought I had to go into, it took me a long time, and I apologize to Todd, it took me a long time to come up with that plan. Once he got Gliscor behind screens, that was it. I was like, okay, I have to think like 9 turns ahead and just position everything so carefully to win this. So I took a long time at that point to get everything where I wanted it to be. But We did it. We did it in the end. We got there in the end. It all played out. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. It maybe wasn't as entertaining as the Isaac battle in terms of twists and turns, who's going to win, who's not going to win. But just in terms of an actual really clean, good, well-played game of Pokemon, this is it. This is what we all aspire to have, or what I aspire to have every week in draft format. A good, clean, well-played game. And shout out to Todd for a great match. I still can't believe I beat him, to be honest. He's a great player, as evidenced here. And we are now, the Lake District Spirits are now 4-3 in the PEBA. In this league with 3 Swedes in my fixture list, with the Season 1 champion in my fixture list, with people like the one guy who is undefeated, has won every game he's played in my fixture list, with Ace, who proved to be such a good battler and is scaring the whole league, I think, at this point. With all of these terrifying people that I've already played, to say that I'm going positive, say that I'm going 4-3, and I'm being self-indulgent, but say that I'm going 4-3, I'm so proud. Like, I am so proud right now, and I have to give a huge, huge shout out to my front office, because seriously, they have helped so much. Like, they have helped me lift my game exponentially, and I'm very, very grateful to them for that. So, yeah, hopefully somehow we can keep pushing on and maybe make playoffs. And if we make playoffs, that would be insane. We have 5 matches left now, I believe, of this season. We play Blake Trout, who is 1 win for 4 losses, but just made some big trades and is a very good battler. So that is going to be a difficult game. Just because he's 1 win for 4 losses does not mean that he's a bad player at all. That would be very, very difficult. Go up against Blake Trout. We go up against Toasty Rex, who we just battled in the LTC, just narrowly putting him out of playoffs in the LTC. Another superb battler, really original and unusual prepper, so that's going to be difficult. Then we go up against Fadaki, who I don't believe is doing super well, but I know is a good battler. Then then Young Bishop, who is at the currently lost all of his games, 100% losing streak at the minute, but I expect that to turn around. Very scary dual weather draft, and I know that he's going to want wins. And if he hasn't got one by the time he battles me, he's really going to want one, so that's going to be scary. And then last week of the season, we go against Eevee Master, and this is really important. This is why I'm doing this. Eevee Master currently is on the exact same record as me in the league, I believe. And we are in the same division vying for the same playoff spots. So it could well be that that last game of the season decides who makes playoffs between he and I. And currently, unless I'm mistaken, Eevee, if you're watching, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I have a 100% win record against Eevee. I have beaten him every time we played, I believe. So I really don't want that streak to end, but that means he's going to be trying so hard to beat me for the first time, potentially, and to make playoffs, potentially. So we're like, the way I see it is our remaining 5 fixtures, and this is no discredit to the people that I'm playing, are a lot easier than my first 7 fixtures. I believe the Lake District Spirits' first half of the season was stacked. Second half of the season is definitely easier. So we have a really, really great chance of, out of those 5 games, I have said to my front office I'm targeting 4 wins. If we can get 8 and 4 as our final record, we've won 50% more than we've lost. Or 100% more than we've lost, sorry. Sorted. I will be happy with that. An 8-4 record in the PEBA with the fixtures we've had would be insane. So that's what we're targeting, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this battle. Hopefully we can push on and try and get that 8-4 record. Maybe even go 9-4. That would be incredible. That would guarantee playoffs, I believe. But hopefully we push on, try and go 8-4 and maybe make playoffs. Maybe. It's a big, big ask. I don't know if I'm consistent enough yet to do it, but hopefully. By the time you guys see this, you should see that we've already secured LTC playoffs. So to be able to do LTC playoffs and then PEBA playoffs back to back would just be insane. It would just be insane. I feel like we are finally reaching that goal where when I joined the Draft League community, I was patient. I wanted to say that I could play against some of the best players, and I feel like we're finally getting there. So I'm going to shut up now because I'm being so self-indulgent. I'm probably a terrible winner. I always feel so bad about that, but I don't win often, so let me have it. GG to my man Todd, as I've said before. Please do check out his channel if you made it this far. If anyone's still watching at this point, I'm not just talking to myself. Please go check out his channel. If you're new here and you're still here, shout out to you. Please do subscribe. Please do comment and like the video. It means a lot. I'm really proud of this one. So yeah, it means a lot. Thank you so much for loafing around me, guys, and I'll catch you again next time.